Every gaming family has that one outcast, the cousin no one wants to talk about, the sibling everyone pretends doesn't exist, or in this case, the game fans love to hate but secretly respect. Welcome to the Black Sheep of Gaming, a series where we explore the misunderstood entries that dare to do something different and paid the price for it. Today's Black Sheep comes from one of horror's most iconic families, Silent Hill. But instead of foggy streets, static radios, and rusty wheelchairs, we got snow, a phone, and a psychological test. That's right, we're diving into Silent Hill Shattered Memories, the 2009 reimagining that tore the fanbase in half. And by the way, this is my favorite Silent Hill game of all time. Now, if you've ever played the original Silent Hill, you remember it as A Nightmare in the Fog, a story about Harry Mason searching for his daughter in a cursed town. Shattered Memories took that same setup and twisted it. Like no combat, no cult, no multiple endings based on good or evil, of course, just you, your memories, and how the game quietly reads your behavior like a therapist with bad intentions. When it released, some called it genius, others called it a betrayal. But here's the thing, Shattered Memories didn't just remake Silent Hill, it reinterpreted it. It held a mirror not just to its characters, but to the player. So, as always in this series, we're going to take a look at how we got here, what Shattered Memories did right, why it was hated, and how, in a weird way, it might have been ahead of its time. And if you think a Silent Hill game without combat sounds insane, well, that's kind of the point. To understand Shattered Memories, we need to go back, all the way back to 1999, when Silent Hill first crawled out of the fog. It was developed by Team Silence at Konami. The original game was Japan's answer to Resident Evil, but with a psychological twist. Instead of relying on jump scares or gore, Silent Hill scared you through atmosphere, symbolism, and that thick, suffocating fog that hid both monsters and meaning. It was less about survival horror and more about psychological horror. Every element of the original was intentional. The distorted sound design, the camera angles that made you feel watched, and the monsters that looked like they crawled straight out of the human subconscious. Players weren't just exploring a haunted town, they were exploring guilt, repression, and trauma. From there, the series hit a golden age, Silent Hill 2 in 2001. This game redefined storytelling in horror. It gives us James Sunderland and one of the most heartbreaking endings in gaming history. Then Silent Hill 2 came and it continued the cult storyline with Heather. And then Silent Hill 4 The Room. Silent Hill 4 The Room, it took the franchise in like a more experimental direction. Like instead of exploring a town, you were actually trapped in your own apartment with the horror slowly seeping into your walls, and people still hated this game. But after The Room, something changed. Team Silence was dissolved by Konami in the mid 2000s, and the series was handed to Western developers. The first of these was Silent Hill Origins in 2007, which tried to stay faithful to the formula but felt like a greatest hits album. Fans were worried, and I remember this game because it was the first game I played on the PS2. And by this point, the Silent Hill name had become both a blessing and a curse. Like Konami wanted to keep the brand alive, but the horror landscape was shifting. Like players were drawn to cinematic games like Resident Evil 4 and Dead Space. The industry was evolving, and so was the audience. That's when Climax Studios, a UK-based developer, came in with a bold idea. Instead of making another sequel, what if they reimagined the original game entirely? A modern retelling that focused not on combat or cults, but on psychology and identity. In other words, Silent Hill wasn't just going to scare you, It was going to analyze you. That's scary enough. And so, Silent Hill Shattered Memories was born, a 2009 reboot that dared to change everything about what the series used to be. By 2009, Silent Hill was at a crossroads. The original creators, Team Silent, were gone, and Konami was outsourcing its biggest horror brand to Western studios. The series was losing its identity. It was stuck between trying to evolve and trying to please a fan base that didn't want it to change. Now enter Climax Studios, a British developer that had previously worked on Silent Hill Origins. After that project, they pitched something radically different to Konami. Not another sequel, not a prequel, but a full psychological reimagining of the first game. Instead of a remake that simply polished the old scares, this would reinterpret the core idea: a father searching for his daughter in a nightmare world. Sam Parlow, the game's writer and director, had a vision, and in an interview with Eurogamers in 2009 he said, "We didn't want to make a museum piece. We wanted to make something that talked back to you." That talking back became the foundation of Shattered Memories. Every choice you made, every glance, every hesitation, the game recorded it and quietly reshaping itself to fit psychology. It wasn't just about surviving Silent Hill anymore. No, it was about discovering who you were inside it. But there was also a practical side to this reboot: the Nintendo Wii. The Wii was dominating the market at that time, and Konami wanted to bring Silent Hill to that specific audience. The result was a game built around motion controls, immersive exploration, and the idea that your phone, not your gun, would be your lifeline. Parlow and his team stripped the game of combat entirely. No melee weapons, no firearms, no fighting monsters. Instead, when danger appeared, you had to run, sprinting through icy labyrinths as creatures screamed behind you. For a series known for its slow, deliberate terror, this was a shock. From a creative perspective, Shattered Memories was an experiment, a chance to revive Silent Hill by breaking it apart. The developers wanted to challenge players' expectations, make them question what was real, and even make them uncomfortable with how personal the experience became. They didn't just redesign Silent Hill, they redesigned fear itself. But for all its ambition, this direction came with a risk. Fans wanted fog, cults, and psychological torment, but Shattered Memories offered introspection, therapy sessions, and a town that wasn't trying to kill you, but rather understand you. And in the end, it was a gamble that would divide the community right down the middle. Now, let's be honest, Shattered Memories might not be everyone's favorite entry, but it did a lot of things right. In fact, many of its ideas were years ahead of their time. Like, this wasn't just another horror game, it was a psychological experiment wearing the skin of one. First, let's talk about the psychological profiling system. Easily the game's most unique feature. Every answer you gave to Dr. Kaufman's therapy questions, every detail you lingered on while exploring, even how long you looked at certain objects, subtly shaped your version of Silent Hill. This system wasn't just a gimmick, it fundamentally changed the narrative and presentation. Harry's personality, his dialogue, and even how other characters responded to him were all reflections of you. For example, if you acted more flirty or curious, characters might appear more suggestive. If you ignored them or acted distant, they became cold and defensive. It wasn't morality based like Mass Effect, it was personality based. That's what made it feel personal. Then there's the pacing and structure. Unlike traditional Silent Hill games that relied on combat and puzzles to slow you down, Shattered Memories stripped everything to its emotional core. The focus was exploration and atmosphere. Every house you entered, every voicemail you found, every eerie, broken family photo told part of a story. Like the town wasn't just haunted, it was alive, shifting, and breathing with your emotions. From a design standpoint, Climax Studios nailed the environmental storytelling. There are no loading screens between sections, everything flows naturally, making Silent Hill feel seamless. The phone mechanic added a sense of immersion that was rare for the Wii era. You could literally aim the remote to take pictures, dial numbers, or use GPS. It felt like you were part of the world, not just watching it. And of course, the game's visual that still holds up to this day they were impressive for a 2009 game, especially on the Wii. Like the snow wasn't just a stylistic choice; it created a sense of isolation. Where the fog in earlier games represented confusion and mystery, snow represented numbness, emotional frostbite. It was the perfect metaphor for a story about denial and memory. But one of the most powerful aspects was the emotional charged narrative. While earlier Silent Hill titles explored guilt and sin, Shattered Memories explored grief and acceptance. It didn't just scare you, it made you reflect. And by the end, the horror wasn't about the monsters at all. It was about what you were running from emotionally. And of course, finally, we cannot forget the audio design. The score of this game, the tracks like Acceptance and When You're Gone, they hit like an emotional gut punch. Even the silence between the music mattered. Like it gave your mind room to wander, and that's where Silent Hill always thrived. Silent Hill Shattered Memories dared to strip away everything people thought made the series Silent Hill, and somehow it still managed to feel like Silent Hill. It replaced fear of the unknown with fear of the self, and in doing so, it proved that horror doesn't always need blood. Sometimes it just needs truth. So, if Shattered Memories did so much right, why did so many fans hate it? Well, to put it simply, it wasn't the Silent Hill they knew. When the game dropped in late 2009, longtime fans of the series were expecting something familiar: cults, grotesque monsters, heavy symbolism, and of course, a dense fog hiding horrors in every corner. But what they got instead was a snow-covered town, therapy sessions, and zero combat. And it didn't take long for message boards and forums like the Silent Hill Heaven and Reddit to fill with posts saying things like, "This isn't Silent Hill anymore," or "What happened to the fear?" Which is hypocritical because a lot of people love Silent Hill F, which, okay, I don't want to talk about it. I have so much video about Silent Hill, you can check it in right here. And honestly, I can see it. I can see where like the frustration came from. I mean, the Silent Hill series had built like a reputation on being slow, oppressive, and terrifying in its ambiguity. Like every monster had psychological meaning, every location symbolizes trauma. But in Shattered Memories, those same monsters were procedurally designed based on your personality test, which was clever but not scary in a traditional way. Then came the biggest deal breaker: no combat. For a horror game, that was a massive risk. Sure, most players didn't enjoy the clunky melee fights in older Silent Hill games, but removing combat altogether, that made some feel powerless in the wrong way. The chase sequences, where you had to sprint through ice mazes, were divisive. Some found them thrilling, others found them exhausting and repetitive. And I think I'm on the latter on this one, because they were kind of repetitive. The tone also threw people off. Instead of that gritty industrial atmosphere the series was known for, Shattered Memories felt colder, quieter, even sad. Some fans said it felt like an art project more than a horror game. Introspective, sure, but not scary. It replaced dread with melancholy, and that was a tough sell for players expecting blood and rust. Another sticking point was how it rewrote the lore. This wasn't the same Silent Hill with a demonic cult or supernatural fog. The story was entirely self-contained. No mention of Alessa, no other world transitions, no Pyramid Head lurking in the background. It was a psychological reinterpretation of the first game, and for many fans, that felt like erasing the heart of the series. And then there is the ending. Without spoiling too much, Shattered Memories flips the original story on its head, replacing supernatural horror with emotional realism. Some found it powerful, others found it insulting, as if the game was saying everything you loved before didn't matter. But here's the funny thing, for every fan who dismissed it, another defended it passionately. Some argued it was one of the few Silent Hill games that actually understood the franchise's essence, that the horror of Silent Hill has always been personal. But still, in 2009, that wasn't enough. And between the Wii release and the radical gameplay changes, Shattered Memories became the black sheep of the series, praised by critics, misunderstood by fans, and quietly forgotten by the mainstream. When all's said and done, Silent Hill Shattered Memories is one of those rare games that dared to look its audience in the eyes and ask, "Who are you, really?" And that's something few horror games ever attempt. It wasn't about blood, it wasn't about monsters, it was about you, about the way you think, the way you act, and what you choose to see or ignore. It's easy to call this game a failure when you measure it by the franchise expectations. It didn't bring back Team Silent, it didn't continue the cult storyline, it didn't even try to scare you in the same way the old games did. But maybe that was the point. Shattered Memories was never trying to be Silent Hill 2 or 3. It was trying to evolve the idea of what Silent Hill could mean.